Hello everybody, and welcome to a video that I'm going to be titling Why Everybody is Psychic. I'm Jesse from Readings by Jesse. This is the first video that I'm doing for my YouTube channel. I did something similar to this on Facebook about, oh lord, a month ago, maybe maybe a little bit more. And I took a ton of notes because I'm trying to basically explain to people in non-spiritual terms what psychic is and how it works. And essentially what it boils down to is a little background story about myself. One, I am an information junkie. I read all the time on a ton of subjects. I have a small library here on everything mystical and scientific that you can imagine. I even have a book on different varieties of mushrooms. I got all kinds of stuff. And I was also in the military, which I went through electrical mechanical engineering school there. And I was also a certified home inspector for a while. And I also worked in the restaurant industry as a manager for quite a while. I have a very diverse area of training and knowledge on top of what I've learned on my own. And I love reading articles about scientific exploration. And I think a lot of it can actually be applied to the psychic realm and how things actually work. And I do know with everything combined here, science is on the verge of being able to say definitively that psychic abilities are there, everyone has them, and coming up with an actual way to exercise, trigger, and grow those abilities in everyone. Now, I started out with a rough draft, destroyed that, started over again. So bear with me a little bit because this is a little bit of a jump around. I'm going to mainly be discussing the human body, energy fields, and how the human body picks up on those energy fields, and how our bodies transform energy into physical substance, and how our bodies are able to actually transfer energy to energy from one body to another, from one person to another, energy healings. And I'm going to touch on energy beings, angels, demons, spirits, ghosts, elementals, the fae folk, fairies, whatever you want to call them. Some fringe theory also talks about fae folk being aliens, extra-dimensional beings. It's really all the same name for different names for the same thing, I should say. If you're talking about a creature that lives in a dimension that is basically nothing but energy, and they are operating on a frequency that is so far beyond ours that they're closer to the speed of light because they're energy. You know, E equals mc squared, Einstein. The closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time moves in perspective to the rest of reality. And you also become infinitely dense and infinitely small, but infinitely long. So their view, if the energy beings is a spirit's view of our world, is unfathomable. There's no way to describe how they see us. I can only kind of describe how I see them and how others have described seeing them. But essentially, time for them is totally different. And most likely, the reason why some spirits are able to predict the future or give omens and things like that about the future is probably because they explained it in a movie rather perfectly, but I'm going to try to walk you through it. If you think about it like this, here's our linear progression of time. We are right on the surface. We can see maybe a few seconds ahead or behind us, relatively, as we make our way across the timeline. And it moves as we move. We stay here, and it just kind of keeps going and continues on and on forever. The spirits that are in their own little pocket dimension, they have a timeline as well. Infinitely small, though, so theirs can actually almost fit inside of ours. Not to mention the fact that because they're moving so much faster than us, their timeline is actually almost more like this, where they're able to go all over the place on our timeline, but to them, time is almost stopped. There is no necessarily progression of time. It's like being in all places at all times. It's just them wanting to be when and where they want to be. So that's part of it. I jumped ahead a lot on that one. Now, how do we communicate with these energy beings? Well, one is Einstein said that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transformed. And if you were to take the energy out of someone's nervous system, their body, it can't just be destroyed. It has to go out somewhere. Some believe that it blinks out and that's it. That's impossible. By sheer definition of science, that's impossible. It has to go somewhere. And I believe what happens is they sort of enter into an astral or spiritual world where they kind of reform what they consciously believed in this world, what they looked like, but over there. They would see themselves similar to how they were here. The real problem is it would be like a dream to them. They would sort of have control of the dream and sort of not. There would be a lot of confusion. But the biggest point is that, because I'm going to get into that in another video, but my biggest point there is they're stepping outside of time now. And the only way that they can interact with our world is to slow down enough to manifest, which I believe they do through a series of electromagnetic plasma ionic energy, which I think actually generates its own light instead of reflecting light, which is why some cameras can pick them up, some can't. Some people can see them, some can't. Sunlight is a problem, or bright rooms is a big problem for them, because if they're glowing just slightly brighter than a dark room, sure, you'll be able to see them somewhat clearly, but in a bright room, they're going to look like a mist or a haze, and that's going to be it. It's going to just look like a wisp of smoke. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is not everyone can hear them and see them. Some can feel them. You also have temperature variations in rooms where they can essentially change the temperature of a room, which human beings obviously can tell when the temperature changes. They also move around in sort of an electromagnetic cloud, an aura of energy, which all living beings create. And it's also how we transfer energy from one person to another for energy and light healings. Now, some people can hear spirits, some people can see spirits. Children are actually classic for this. They have scientifically proven that children, up to, I want to say, age 9 to 12-ish, they're actually able to see and hear in different frequencies of light that adults are not. And it is because of, one, the shape of their ear, and two, the shape of their eyes. As they get older and their head expands, all of the various little angles and resonation chambers and things all change. And their bodies are not able to hear it as they get older. But I think it's a simple matter of they're not as open to it as they were, because there's too many adults that have reported some sort of a supernatural occurrence for it to just be something that is only a kid thing. I think that what happens is we are mentally programmed as children to believe that things aren't real. Unless you can physically see it, taste it, touch it, and tap on it, it's obviously not real. It's made up, it's imaginary. Oh, it's an imaginary friend. That's not real, and we kind of block it out. And as we get told what's real and what's not real, we start building our own self-image of what we believe reality to be. And through that negative programming, we shut down our conscious awareness of hearing and seeing and feeling these energy fields. And that conscious awareness, our subconscious, is in control of all the things that we don't want to process. So our subconscious is basically filtering out all the background noise, all the whispers, all of the wisps of smoke that we would normally be seeing, or what myself and other psychics would see and hear as spirit communication, auras, ghosts, angels, demons. Now, here's why I say everybody is psychic, is because, one, there are bones in your body that are essentially calcium crystalline structures. Any type of a crystalline structure can pick up a radio frequency, an electromagnetic frequency, and various other types of energy. Sound frequencies and ultra high and ultra low, as well as normal frequencies. Now, there are also crystals in your ears. It's part of the eardrum. Basically, here's the drum of your ear. Here's the part where it hits inside the chamber, and the rest of this is your ear canal. And whenever a noise comes through, it pushes the little flap thing that the eardrum is connected to, and it hits. It taps a nerve. Well, it's not just a nerve. It's actually a crystalline structure on the end of the nerve that's actually sending an electrical impulse straight into the brain, into the auditory nervous system, to where it is processed as sound. Now, you may or may not be aware of this, but the majority of electronics, such as radios, I think some satellite GPS systems still utilize it, but anyway, TVs, original radio systems were actually based on crystals. They are excellent for picking up and amplifying frequencies. And there's something called the piezoelectric effect. The piezoelectric effect essentially says that if you were to say, take a crystal like this, and if this was totally dark and I was feeling really angry at my crystal ball, you can essentially smack this thing with a hammer, and when the crystal breaks, it will actually produce light because it's actually producing electricity. And it's the same thing it does in the eardrum. The most famous example of this is a barbecue lighter. The really long ones that you keep clicking and you can see the little electric spark on the end. There's a tiny disc inside of there that the hammer hits, and it distorts the crystals inside. When it does that, it sends a surge of electrons out of the crystal and straight out as electricity. Positive or negative, zap. You get the electrical spark to light the gasoline. Same thing here with your bones and your ears. They pick up, amplify, and can direct, in some instances, energy of all types. Your eyes, another excellent example. Your eyes are able to see an electromagnetic frequency. We don't see light as in the free air. What we see is the reflection of light off of every other surface. But that doesn't mean that there isn't energy fields out there that are free floating that we can't see. It just means that we've gotten so used to our subconscious filtering it out that we don't notice them anymore because we're not focused on it. We're always looking past it towards the next physical object to see. But when you focus on the middle area and you look in a space where you know there's something at, but you're just looking straight at a wall, you're not looking at the dead space, you're looking at the wall. If you focus on the dead space in between you and the wall and allow your eyes to go in and out of focus, you can catch the aura of something there. Now I'm going to go over some of my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything, because I did have some more points that I wanted to hit on this. Now, I believe it was NASA, but there was an experiment where they basically took Petri dish cells, and some of the cells were sick, some of the cells were healthy. They were in different containers. They put them near each other. The healthy cells actually transferred some form of energy that they could barely register to the sick cells, and the sick cells started getting better. They got healthier. While the healthy cells maintained their healthiness, even though their metabolic rates altered slightly because they were low on energy. Now that is essentially a perfect example of energy healing and energy transference from one living body into another. Now, spirit beings are capable of doing that as well, but they have to slow their energy down, and they have to produce enough of it in our plane in order to actually cause a physical effect. Now, it's completely unknown as to how much of an effect they can actually have, because electromagnetic fields can affect damn near anything, especially if it's metal or if it's living. They know for a fact also that bone, nerves, and cellular tissues can be healed or cause them to regenerate at a faster rate because of electromagnetic fields and electrical fields. Again, substantiating the claim of the ancient healers, such as Tai Chi energy and Reiki healing, which I've studied a little bit of both. I kind of do my own thing, though. It substantiates what they say about being able to generate energy in your body and transfer it to another living thing and having it heal. The cells can do it in petri dishes, and they're not trained and they're not conscious. But if you have a conscious being that can direct the energy and build it at will, why the hell not? Now, that would be one of the psychic abilities, is healing. Now, the crystals in bone structures and in the ears I discussed. There is one other area here that I did want to talk about if I can find it. Okay. There is one interesting one here, which is, this was another NASA study that they did. Love NASA. They do a lot of stuff. And they actually did this study to try to debunk psychic ability. They heard a story about a man who could go for extended periods of time without eating and only being able to survive for a long period of time on just water. And what they found was, he said that there are certain periods of time when the sun is setting and rising, when it goes orange, when you can look at it and it doesn't hurt your eyes, and it changes the frequency of the light. And he basically said that he can stare at the light, draw energy in through his eyes, and draw substance from the sun itself, essentially turning your eyes into like a solar cell to recharge your batteries in your body, your cells. Now, the interesting part about this was NASA actually started the study to disprove it. It was to debunk the study. What they found was, not only was his brain, not only were his eyes absorbing energy and transferring it into the optic nerve into the brain, and then creating chains of complex proteins on their own for nourishment for the body and energizing other cells somehow, and they're still not sure how. But he was able to do it over and over and over again. And they were able to actually take other people that he worked with and have them repeat the same process, and their bodies were able to carry it out as well. Basically meaning he was sustaining his body on almost pure energy from only looking at the sun. I think he said you start out with like a few seconds and build up to minutes and then weeks and eventually, or minutes and then maybe an hour at most in the day, in the morning and in the night. Excuse me. But that was one of the energy studies that they did on nourishing the body with energy from the sun and from the environment around. And this is not something that is new. This is something that Tai Chi masters, yoga masters, and several other people have talked about for centuries. Sorry, I got invaded by a cat. There's 3 kitties in the house, and most likely they'll be in and out to bother me all day long. Now, the next part that is very interesting is the nose. The nose has a heavy magnetite deposit right in the bone that is present inside of this area of the nose. It's part of the cartilage and it's not part of the cartilage, but essentially, you can look all this up on Google, by the way. Feel free to try to refute me. Essentially, what it acts as is a natural compass. You've heard people talk about a sense of direction. Essentially, what this does is tell someone where north is. Now, electromagnetic field can throw off a compass. Spirits can be picked up with electromagnetic fields. And then you also have EVPs, which gets into, I'll talk about that in a second. But my point is, spirits, electromagnetic fields, ghosts, electromagnetic fields. Your nose can pick up electromagnetic fields. Your crystals in your ears and in your bones themselves can pick up electromagnetic fields. Your eyes can absorb energy and create complex cells just by looking at the sun. These aren't things that are in speculation. They're just things that they don't understand. And I do believe with practice, and by not being afraid of these things, and by sort of embracing the idea that you can hear them and feel them and translate them, you can pick it up and communicate to the other side. And it would make a lot more sense for us to be able to contact them than for them to be able to contact us, because they're using far more energy to get to us than we are to get to them. Now, the other part that I wanted to talk about is the ultra high and ultra low frequencies and electromagnetic frequencies that spirits talk through. Your ear crystal and the crystals in your ears respond to ultra high, ultra low frequencies. Here's the thing though, EVP, electromagnetic voice phenomenon. It basically ghost recordings. You can do it with VHS tapes. People have actually been able to psychically imprint images onto camera, undeveloped camera. I can't think of it. Anyway, film, undeveloped camera film, and then some digital camcorders and things like that, and voice recorders can pick up spirit voices and things like that. When you play them back, you hear the spirit. Those frequencies and those sound waves, not only are the crystals in your body going to interact, but your brain itself is a giant network of nervous cells that all work on electrical impulses. Electrical impulses can be changed with magnetic fields, which means you can hear and feel how the spirits are communicating. Ultra high and ultra low sound frequencies have actually been outlawed internationally for weapons use because it can be used to kill someone or disorientate them completely. It can also throw off your inner ear and give you vertigo. It can make you feel sick to your stomach, or it can give you a sense of euphoria depending on the frequency. It's literally a cornucopia of stuff that your body can feel that we completely ignore every day. Now, going over human nerve cells and brain cells can read and feel energies of different types. Your nerves can pick up electrical impulses, how we control our bodies, how we communicate with the rest of our bodies, and our cells and stuff all communicate. We feel pain, we feel hot, cold, you get it. Your nerve cells can pick up energy from outside sources, and as you've seen with some of the muscle exercising equipment, causes muscles to jerk and jump as they send electricity through. Think of it as that, but on a much smaller, more subtle scale. You'll feel it. You'll feel a tingle, or you'll get that feeling of, ooh, someone walked over my grave. The tingles that go up the back of your neck. The feeling of a chill when there is no chill. Those are the types of feelings that when you notice more and more and you pay attention to more and more, you can actually interpret into what a spirit is trying to tell you, especially when you physically call out to a spirit. Because you're not just sending out mental energy to contact them, but you're also sending out an auditory message that is vibrating out, both energetically and physically. Now, human cells also heal and die by different frequencies: ultra high, ultra low, EMF, solid magnetic fields, static field, rotating. Like, they all have different effects, but essentially the body can pick up and respond to all of them. We already discussed children. And then to go over this really fast, energy beings and frequencies of dimensions of space and time. As you approach the speed of light, time slows down. When these beings choose to manifest, they must slow down to form an ionic plasma cloud that doesn't reflect light, but can distort it, and can be seen in the dark better because it probably emits light. Now, there's the problem, is when they want to communicate to us, they have to slow down. But here's the thing, it's easier for us to actually communicate and hear them than it is for them to talk to us. That's why people have to find psychics. No matter how bad they want to communicate, you can yell out all you want, and they could be right there hearing you. but they can't communicate to you. They can see you, hear you, everything, but you can't actually hear or see them. Imagine how frustrating that would be. To be trapped in a room surrounded by people screaming your head off and no one can hear you. And then walks in a lonely psychic into a room with 200 guests and 30 ghosts all wanting to talk at once. That's what usually happens to a psychic when they go into an area that is highly populated by both people and spirits. Not to mention the fact that the psychics can pick up the aura energies and emotions of the people that are still alive and the ones that have crossed over. Think of it like if an average person is, say, this psychic, okay, small stack of cards psychic. And then you have someone who's a sensitive. Then you have somebody who's actually a full-blown psychic, like myself. Much more sensitive. Then you have someone like Elizabeth Warren, or some of the... she was the first one that popped in my head because of the movies. But you get the idea. The people that are the more powerful are the more sensitive. They have a larger variety of gifts that they're more honed at using. The people that are more sensitive are the ones that sort of get intuitions. They can maybe guess what you're feeling, stuff like that. They kind of have an idea as to what they're doing. Mostly it's all intuitive, though. They just sort of get a feeling and then go with their gut, and they're usually right. They're great guessers. Now, here's an interesting part, though. And this is something else that I'm going to be getting into in more detail in another video. But this is why energy beings and ghosts want to talk to us at all. Why would a ghost contact a psychic? I've had that question asked before. Or why would an angel or any kind of spirit? And here's the answer. These energy beings eat our energy. And as a byproduct, when they consume our energy, just like we have byproduct when we consume something, they actually cause physical changes in the environment around them. They can either manifest it in varieties of ways, those changes. And it usually can seem like circumstance or coincidence, but what it really boils down to is 99% of the time, witches, witchcraft, you can cast a spell for any of these things, or a psychic can focus their energy on a specific thing to happen. And here's what happens. These energy beings are going to eat up that energy. They're going to go straight over there, and they're going to whisper in his ear and go, you need to make a left. Then they're going to fly over here, and then they're going to tell another person, when you see him make a left, you need to hit your brakes and slow him down by 5 seconds. And through these small chains of events, through human interaction, you can change an entire outcome in a way that looks miraculous, but it was actually just a small series of coincidental changes. Then you do have some instances where it is some sort of a monumental change. I have actually witnessed people use weather magic and try to conjure storms or stop rain or bring a wind. They don't always work, but when they do, it's rather spectacular because you can go from a calm day to a small dust devil in front of you in a few matter of moments. And it basically boils down to, we produce their food. And as a byproduct, they give us what we want because they have to do something with that energy. So, that brings me to the next thing. Why would they keep on coming back to us? They are basically, much like how humans grow food, they're going to cultivate the environments to which is the most nourishing for them. And this is where you get positive spirits and negative spirits. Positive spirits feed on happy vibes. Negative spirits feed on negative vibes. Your angels and your demons, or what we would call them. The ancient Greek for the word demon actually means spirit. They didn't actually classify them as good or evil. They just knew that there was good and evil in the human world and in the animal kingdom, so they knew it had to be the same on the other side. Which brings me to my next point. They are much like any human or animal, but their intellectual capacity for some of these beings is far beyond what we could possibly comprehend. Because even if something on their side would be considered a dumb animal, like a slug, compared to a human being's intelligence and what that slug on that side does, they could be an Albert Einstein in our world. For the simple fact that they are working in an area where the laws of physics do not apply at all in relation to what we would perceive, which is why they can be so perfect for human beings to work with. Now, humans have an energy body and a body that can affect our environment. They have done multiple studies on this. Essentially, they've done multiple studies on human beings affecting the outcome of scientific experiments by observation. The most classic one is, if I can remember how this worked right, it was something along the lines of they had a sheet of gold, they were firing electrons at the sheet, and while everyone was watching, they were behaving exactly how they thought it would, which was they were stopping. When people weren't watching, the electrons were passing right through, or disappearing and reappearing. In other words, the results changed when either it was just being recorded or when someone was actually physically watching the experiment happen in real time. That is proof that human beings change their environment according to how they think it should function. So, all human beings are psychic. There is a plethora of information to prove this. Your entire body is a network of cells, crystals, bone made out of your bones, electromagnetic receiving and transmitting nerves all over the place, with a giant transmitter right in the middle of your melon. And your eyes and your ears are literally designed to see and hear in frequencies of light, energy, and sound that you are not aware of in almost any instance. And we're able of projecting energy and receiving energy that can have negative and positive effects on our bodies physically. Not to mention the fact that you can change someone's mood or read someone's mood a similar way. Because essentially the brain tells the body how to feel. The brain tells the body how to have an autoimmune response, or the body tells the body how to have an autoimmune response because it detects an infection. However the network of information travels, it's still the same thing. You can tell a small portion of the body to heal, and the rest of the body is largely unchanged. How does it translate that? Pain, but not always. Energy healers can basically tell the body to stop feeling pain or to feel pain. They can tell the body to heal or to be sick. There's psychic vampires out there who basically just sort of drain the excess energy out of people until they feel very down and depressed while they walk away feeling happy and giddy. These are things that happen every day. But everyone has a degree of psychic ability. Which brings me to my last and final point. Albert Einstein believed in precognition. And here's why. And I'm paraphrasing a lot of this for those that actually know about what I'm talking about. But let me explain. There is a cortex in the back of your brain at the base, right around here in the back, like roughly behind your ears, just below. And it's a bundle of nerves that is wrapped around in a giant coil. And there are little bits inside of there that are crisscrossed, basically jumping the circuit, if you would. But that bundle is all connected to what goes to the spine, feeds into different parts of the brain, but it's essentially a cortex of energy that travels in a circle. Not to mention the fact that your entire brain is built up of a bunch of folds and a bunch of clusters of nerves that don't always necessarily fire in what you would think would be a logical pattern, because we have a holographic memory within the human body. When you say the word tree, you simultaneously mentally flash to various images of a tree, but you'll always flash to the one that you remember the most or that you enjoyed the most. But anyway, my point is, he believed that because human thought traveled as electricity, if there was a spiraling cortex where sensory perception would be processed, such as touch, emotion, sight, taste, hearing, those things are processed there as it enters into the brain and gets distributed out to all the appropriate areas. if those processes are at the speed of light, then time is practically irrelevant to it. It's instantaneous. So it is possible that people that do have the gift of precognition to be able to see the future are actually receiving impulses from the future that they are reading energetically, but it's actually because of their brain acting as a coil, kind of shock putting them into the future for a moment while they're sensing what is going on. It's possible that that's the best way to explain it. My point is, there's a lot of things that the human body is capable of feeling, sensing, projecting, and doing. And because of the negative program that we receive as children, we lose a lot of those abilities. Now, I am going to go into further detail in later videos on spirits, spirit communication, and the problems that it that you can have. Magic, psychic effects, physiological effects of magic on the body. There's a whole host of videos that I want to do, and I am going to be posting them specifically on YouTube. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I hope it was informative to you. Have a great night.